Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and it's the return of the batch once again. Now what a better way to start your Wednesday than with a trip to a galaxy far, far away. When the trailer for this season first dropped, everyone was excited to see the return of a certain Wookie, and we finally get to meet back up with him properly in this episode. Throughout this video, we're going to be breaking down the Easter eggs, hidden details, and also everything you need to know about the young Wookie. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for breakdowns like this every day. Out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into the Bad Batch. Now the episode is called Tribe, and this centers around getting Gungi back to his. Also, I went back and forth over whether it was Gungi or Gungi, and in the episode they say
it's Gungi.
So we're just sticking with that, right? Now back to the title. Tribes also share common goals, and they need to be one, which we see throughout the episode. Now we start off with the Bad Batch arriving on the Vanguard. This isn't to be confused with Vanguard Station, which appeared during the reign of the Sith Empire. Instead, this is very much a black market hotspot, similar to what we saw in The Mandalorian Season 1. The place is overrun by Axis droids, and I can see flashes of L-337 in their design, even though this is their first time appearing in the saga. Now the ship's arrival reminded me a lot of the one from The Return of the Jedi, and the shots of it flying in and landing are similar to Darth Vader showing up in that movie. They're there to sell some forged chain codes, and these are a type of ID used in the Star Wars universe. At this point in time, several people were on the run from the Empire, and they needed to have fake IDs in order to bypass them. There's a lot of metaphors for the Second World War, and during this time, the Germans were hunting Jewish people, much like how the Empire are out hunting the Jedi. They made it mandatory to wear the Star of David on their arm, but some people refused to do this, and they had fake IDs created so they could slip around them and escape persecution. We'll talk about these more in a bit, but after Omega suspects something is off, she sneaks into the bowels of the ship, which is where she comes across Gungi. After creating a distraction, she buys him time to fight back, which is when the Vanguard droids come in. Now Gungi first debuted all the way back in the Clone Wars episode The Gathering. He was sent to Ilium with 5 of his classmates, where they were instructed to enter a crystal cave as part of their training. This was in order to get kyber crystals so that they could construct their lightsabers, and it's the first of many Fallen Order parallels. I know the show came before the game, but that also had a mission where you did the same thing on Ilium. You also enter Kashyyyk in Chapter 3, and we'll talk later on about how similar things in the game also happen in this entry. Now on the way back, Gungi and the group were captured by pirates, however they managed to escape, and he finds himself in the clutches of traffickers once more here. Gungi also fought against the forces of Grievous, and he was there when the Jedi Temple got bombed. This was when he was under Master Terra Sanub, who, I believe, showed up in the tanks during Obi-Wan. Now Gungi managed to survive Order 66, and we learn here that he was fleeing across the galaxy to Sanctuary. This was to Kashyyyk, and he may have to go on the path of the Jedi that we also saw in Obi-Wan. As we know, the Empire do storm the planet, so the peace he gets at the end won't last very long. Now, the entire thing with the Jedi, to me again, is clearly a metaphor for the Jews in World War II, and just in the same way that the Germans decided to exterminate them, the Jedi have suffered the exact same fate. Thus, those that ended up surviving often relied on the kindness of others, like what we see the Bad Batch demonstrating here. The penalty for harbouring Jews was often death, and the Germans that hunted them down acted much in the same way that the Empire does. Rogue factions would often capture and transfer them for rewards and good favour, which the droids might be doing. We don't get it confirmed that they're working for the Empire, and potentially he could be sold into slavery like a lot of the other Wookiees were. Chainlinks would provide him with a new ID that would make him seem like he's not a Jedi, and thus if the Empire ever went to his owner and scanned his slaves, then it wouldn't seem like he'd been harbouring Jedi. As the forces of Vanguard discover Gungi has escaped, the Batch team up with him and he busts out his green lightsaber. I don't know why, but seeing my man has a green one here, it just looks way cooler than a blue one. I don't think you would have suited blue, and it's a good choice, mate. It's a bloody good choice. Anyway, they manage to escape, and Gungi ends up sitting outside Omega's room at the back of the ship. We can once more see her doll Lula, and this previously belonged to Wrecker, who gave her it as a gift. Omega brings Gungi food, and a classic Star Wars cantina of what I hope's delicious blue milk. Now Gungi is standoffish initially because he's seen firsthand how the clones can turn on the Jedi. Mindlessly, they carried out Order 66, and they were able to do this because the Jedi trusted them. One minute they were brothers in arms, and the next they were turning on their friends cause Palps said so. He was attempting to reach Kashyyyk when he was captured, and thus they decided to drop him off. Though the Empire isn't predominant here, what happens in the episode could draw their attention, and unwittingly the Bad Batch may have put a target on the planet. As they fly in, we see the luscious trees, and these are perfectly recaptured in animation from the other times we visited the planet. Now, when we last saw Kashyyyk in the timeline, I think we were just coming off of the back of the battle in Revenge of the Sith. The Wookiees ended up harboring the Jedi, and as we know from things like Solo, the population were enslaved by the Empire. Black Krrsantan went through this too, and if you want to learn more about him, then check out our video on the character. Anyway, the way it appears here is slightly less occupied than how it shows up later in the timeline in Fallen Order. When you arrive there, it was being overrun by the Imperials and also the Inquisitors. During the game, you start off by hijacking an AT-AT and taking out the others before you tuck to the land to stop the Imperials. This was very much a Wookiee uprising alongside the rebels, and along the way you encountered some of the creatures of the planet. This included a Kashyyyk, which is the W, 3 Ys, and then Shkok with 2 Ks on the end. Don't know how to pronounce it, but unfortunately, they don't end up in this episode, though we do get some similar things. Now, this happens when they end up wandering into a part of the forest that we see is covered in spiderwebs. This reminded me a lot of Mirkwood from The Hobbit, and this location showed up at the start of Desolation of Smaug. However, unlike the spiders that attacked the group then, we see how these ones only lash out if they feel threatened. They give them safe passage, and I also feel like the legs of the creatures are designed to look similar to the Acklay from Attack of the Clones. Now, they come across the first sign that something's amiss with a destroyed home on the ground. These were suspended up high with the trees, and the fact that it's come crashing down shows how the planet has fallen. Like the Bad Batch, the Empire has destroyed Gungi's home, and we see the Trandoshan slavers moving a Wookiee hostage across the land. This is a similar tale to the origin story Black Krrsantan had, and he was captured by Trandoshan slavers when they swarmed the planet. They're using a repurposed AAT tank, and these would have remained on the planet after the Separatists swarmed it. They modified the front of the cannon to now have a flamethrower, and they start burning the sacred Wookiee shrines. Reporting to Captain Venimo, we see as Gungi loses it on them, and he busts out the powers that he's had to hide. He frees the Wookiee and takes down the tank, and this allows Hunter to beat the f***'s ass. Now, they spend all night putting out the fires, and in the morning, the freed slave returns with backup. I don't think we've seen this giant big-eared tiger creature before, but let me know if we have. Now here we meet the tribe leader Yana, and this name means God is gracious and he answers. She ends up putting her head together with the Wookiee, and this is a gesture we've seen before when Chewbacca did it in Solo with Sagwa. It's clearly something that bonds them all together, and Sagwa and Chewie both are just being freed like what we see with the Wookiee here. Yana also does it with Gungi, and he wouldn't really spend any time with his people before. Padawans are taken from their family when they're very young, and thus they don't really grow up on the planet that they're from. Now across Kashyyyk, we see as the Trandoshans and clones discover the lightsaber marks. This would be a massive red flag to alert the Inquisitors, and it could explain why they take such interest in the planet in Fallen Order. However, Venimo takes control, and he wants to capture the Jedi first. He offers 100 Wookiee pelts, and this goes into the idea that they'd skin Wookiees and wear their fur almost like a trophy. Boba Fett was presented with a Wookiee pelt as a gift by a Trandoshan at the start of his Disney Plus show, and Bosk was also known for cutting them apart too. The area ends up getting swarmed, and that night the batch decide to stay and help the Wookiees fight the Empire. Gungi learns of their ways, and he joins with them, asking the trees for help. In another Lord of the Rings parallel, it's similar to the Ents going to war, though the trees don't get up themselves and join the fight, obviously. Now, thematically though, there are a lot of things that play off each other, and J.R.R. Tolkien was very anti-industrialization. The Orcs represented this, and they of course destroyed the forest, made bombs, and also created things that were somewhat factories. The Imperials are very much doing this as well, with them ravaging nature and destroying Kashyyyk so that they can mine it for resources. The search for the Wookiees continue, and after throwing a thermal detonator into the mix, the natives then ambush them. I know it's a story trope in general, but having just rewatched Avatar, I was reminded a lot of that. The animals of Pandora also came together to take on the humans, and it felt like a similar sort of battle with every species fighting to protect their home. I suppose you could draw similarities with Return of the Jedi too, and Ewoks of course also fought the Empire on their home planet amongst the trees. I'm sure I read somewhere that there was a discussion about making the Ewoks' home the same as the Wookiees, but I might be misremembering that because I'm a moron. Now the spiders take off Venimo to a fate unknown, and it's pretty horrifying seeing this guy get spun up and then carried off. Sometimes I think the PG stuff actually has worse deaths than if they just kill them outright. Anyway, the next day there's a big celebration with Omega and Gungi both praying to the tree. Hunter realizes that the wars stripped them of their childhood, and he hopes one day for a future where kids can live without conflict. It's a poignant way to end the episode, and this was also one of my favourite episodes of the season so far. I love seeing what the Empire has done in the galaxy, and it shows why the group themselves are so important. Plus it's great when the show ties in with the Clone Wars and Jedi, and I did have a lot of fun. Obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts though, so comment below and let me know. We are in a competition right now and giving away Wakanda Forever to 3 subscribers on the 15th of February, and all you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and comment below with your thoughts on the episode. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of The Last of Us, which will be linked on screen right now. Lots of things to talk about in the new episode, it's linked on screen there. Go check it out and I'll see you on that one. If not, thanks for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, you take care of yourself. Peace.